Hey, it's Todd Hatta. I'm a full-time traveler currently living in Thailand. I spent the last 1.5 years here in Southeast Asia, before that about 4 years living in Mexico City. After living outside of the US for a while, here's the 5 myths about the USA I no longer think are true. The USA is the land of the free. The idea of the US as the land of the free feels like it's shifting, and a lot of that comes down to debates over changing laws, societal norms, and economic struggles. America's always been proud of its freedom of speech, religion, and the press, but these days some people feel like those freedoms are being chipped away. Between censorship, cancel culture, backlash, and even government surveillance, it can feel like you have to watch what you say, especially online. In Thailand, while there are strict laws limiting certain kinds of speech, the vibe is much more laid back when it comes to things like cancel culture, political correctness, and social backlash. People seem less intense about those issues here. When it comes to social progress, the US has made huge strides in areas like LGBTQ+ rights and celebrating diverse cultures. But with the new president recognizing only 2 sexes, it feels like things have taken a step backwards. Meanwhile, Thailand is breaking ground. Just last week, they passed a law allowing gay marriage. In some ways, Thailand is now ahead on this front. Financial freedom in the US is another story. The middle class is shrinking, and a lot of people are struggling just to keep up with rising costs. Even though I did well with my business, it felt like every time I started to get ahead, there was another expense. Higher taxes, increased utilities, tariffs, it was endless. No matter how much you did, it never seemed like enough. Now that I'm in Thailand and running my business remotely in the US, my cost of living is so much lower compared to California. It's such a relief not to have as many expenses. Life is slower, simpler, and I'm spending way less for a better quality of life. Life is more convenient in the US, but is it really? The US is heavily car dependent, especially in suburban and rural areas. Public transportation is efficient in some major cities, but less accessible nationwide. Ride-sharing apps like Uber and Lyft are widely available but extremely expensive. Road infrastructure is excellent, but often comes with horrible traffic congestion in many cities. In Thailand, public transportation is extensive. There's trains, the BTS and MRT in Bangkok, buses, minivans, songtaos, tuk-tuks, taxis, and affordable ride-sharing apps like Grab and Bolt. Traffic can be intense in urban areas, but options for getting around are inexpensive and plentiful. I love not having to own a car or pay for insurance and maintenance in Thailand. It's so easy to take one of the public transportations. Most of the time, it's much easier and cheaper than owning a car in the US. In the US, fast internet and mobile data is plentiful, but costs are a lot higher than in Thailand. Fast delivery for food, groceries, and home goods are quick but can be pricey. Uber Eats and Postmates charge a lot for delivery, plus tips for the drivers. Deliveries in Thailand are so inexpensive, and a lot of times with coupons it costs less getting food delivered than dining in the restaurants. Ordering from Amazon is fast and easy, but does cost a lot more than Shopee and Lazada in Thailand. The US is a self-service culture. You often need to do things yourself, or be prepared to pay a lot for someone to do it for you. House cleaning, babysitting, home repairs, cooking and cleaning are all things most Americans will do themselves if they can, before hiring help. In Thailand, labor is very inexpensive, so if you make a good salary, it's much easier to hire someone to help. For example, a full-time live-in maid could cost around $300 to $500 a month. Gives you an idea of the cost of things here. In Thailand, instead of running errands, you can use an app for many things. It's much easier and doesn't cost too much. I'll order groceries with Grab. It might cost a little more, but saves me the time and cost of going to the store and carrying everything back to my condo or hotel. The US is the best at everything. Growing up in the US, we're constantly told it's the best country in the world. We even call it America, as if the other 34 countries in North, Central, and South America don't exist. In baseball, the finals are called the World Series, and in football and basketball, the winners are dubbed world champions. This idea that America is the best at everything is deeply ingrained in American culture. The US does shine in some areas. It's home to world-famous universities like Harvard, MIT, and Stanford. Silicon Valley leads the world in tech innovation. The US has the largest military budget and a strong global influence. With its huge economy, it offers great career opportunities and high salaries. But let's be real, there are plenty of ways the US isn't leading the pack. Where the US falls short. Healthcare costs. The US has some of the highest healthcare costs in the world, and millions remain uninsured or underinsured. Meanwhile, countries like Thailand offer world-class, affordable healthcare, making it a hotspot for medical tourists. Education costs. College tuition in the US is sky high, leading to crushing student debt. Most countries offer free college or much lower costs. Income inequality. The US has one of the highest wealth gaps among developed countries, and the middle class is shrinking fast. Americans work longer hours with less vacation time compared to workers in many European countries. Gun violence. The US has shockingly high rates of gun violence compared to other developed nations. I feel safer in most other countries than I did in the US. Living in Thailand now, it's clear that there are other ways that don't involve the same level of stress or constant worry. Sure, the US is great in some ways, but it's definitely not the best at everything. Your career is your identity. In the US, career and identity are often deeply intertwined. Work-life balance is skewed, with people frequently judged based on their job title, income, and professional achievements. One of the most common introductory questions I hear is, "What do you do for a living?" It's almost a reflex when meeting someone new or reconnecting after a while. In contrast, outside of the US, work is typically not such a central focus of personal identity. Of the countless locals I met in other countries, only a handful have asked me about my job when we first met. Instead, conversations center around more personal and meaning topics, like what brought me to their country, what interests do I have, or what local foods I've enjoyed. These interactions feel more human, and they emphasize shared experiences over professional status. It's refreshing not to have careers dominate the conversation. Most jobs, after all, aren't interesting, and many people just complain about their work. Interesting, when I encounter other travelers from the US, some still immediately ask me about my job. It's a reminder of how ingrained that mindset is, even among those who are exploring the world. With time, hopefully many travelers will begin to embrace a broader perspective, one that values connection and curiosity over professional labels. Everyone wants to live in the US. The US pop culture dominance and reputation as a land of opportunity are just two of the reasons that US is so popular. While it's true that many people admire the US for its job prospects, educational institutions, or certain freedoms, not everyone wants to live in the US. There's already millions of US citizens who have chosen to move abroad for a better life. According to Wikipedia, a voting poll from 2022, 4.4 million US citizens are living outside of the US. Now, after the election, there's many more people who will be leaving the US due to their political beliefs, according to Google and their search data, which received a record number of searches about moving to Canada. I've visited 43 states in the US, been to almost every national park I've wanted to see, driven through most of the country, RVing and off-roading, and ate some of the best food from all different parts of the country. But after a while, I was more fascinated with traveling to other countries. The differences in food, culture, architecture, and many other things interested me so much around the world. So one day about 5 years ago, I left the US and never looked back. My main reasons for living in Thailand are the cost of living, quality of life, cheaper healthcare, safety, variety, and enjoyment of a slower, more simple life. Moving to Thailand has really influenced my views of life in the US. I hope you too can travel and see more parts of the world. It's really an amazing thing to see other countries. Keep an open mind, and maybe one day you'll think about moving to another country as well. It's really changed my life in the best ways possible. Thanks for watching, and let me know in the comments what country you'd like to move to, or if you've already moved and how you're liking it.